You are lying in the dark and the quiet ache has settled like a weight behind your ribs. Something that doesn't hurt exactly but lingers, familiar and stubborn. You notice it without naming it. That old shape of yourself, the one you thought you had to be, still waiting on the edge of your thoughts as if it might return in the morning. It's not loud, this ache. It's a kind of hollowed-out presence, like an imprint left in the air after someone walked away too soon. There is no need to fix it tonight. You are already here, this breath, this stillness between heartbeats, and that is enough. The mind has been busy all day with images. What you should have said, how you were seen or not seen, whether your name carries the weight you imagined it would. But those thoughts aren't yours to carry into the dark. You can let them rest. This place, this quiet moment between hours, is not a remedy. It is simply a space where thinking may loosen its grip without being told what to do about anything. If sleep does not come, that's okay. There is nothing here you have to hold tonight. Some people search for philosophy to fall asleep to, or deep thoughts to sleep with, or calm the mind before sleep, or stoic calm at night. Words they've typed into the dark like prayers. And if this reaches you in the hush between 1 hour and another, know that it is not a technique to master, nor a method to apply. It is an invitation to notice how little you need to hold on to even now. You are not being asked to change who you are. You are only being invited to see that you are not so fixed as you believed. No single version of yourself needs to be preserved through the night. The person you were at lunch, the one you met in the mirror this morning, the idea of your future self all passing through like weather over a field. They are not yours to guard. You can let go of what no longer belongs to this moment, not because it was wrong, but because it is already on its way out. The day's wait isn't the things that happened, it's the thoughts about them. And thoughts don't need to be solved, they only need to be released. There is a difference between remembering and carrying. You remember your words, yes, what you said or didn't say, but there is no reason for those same syllables to echo behind your eyes at midnight. They do not have to live inside you like an obligation. Let them drift like dust on still air. The thing about the self, that sense of being a single person, consistent across time, isn't really true in the way we think it is. You are more a movement than a shape, a series of moments passing through attention, each one dissolving as soon as it arrives. The you that woke up this morning has already left behind what it knew then. There's no need to catch up with it now. You notice how easily the mind clings to ideas of who you ought to be, where your life should go, whether you're enough or not. But nothing in this moment requires those thoughts. Nothing demands they stay awake with you. There are things that belong to you, small ones, quiet ones. The warmth of your hands on your chest, the slow rise and fall of breath under your ribs, the faint hum of distant light in the walls. These are real. The rest is just a pattern of passing thoughts, like clouds over water. You do not need to be whole tonight. You do not have to answer for what you missed or failed to become. There's no one watching from outside who needs your performance. Even the future does not demand that you show up as someone particular, only that you exist in this breath right now, exactly as you are. There is a stillness beneath the ache, the part of you that doesn't care about being called anything at all. It doesn't want to be named or defended. It simply is. The quiet between sounds, the space where no story needs to happen. You don't have to prove your worth by holding on. You are not required to keep a version of yourself alive just because it once felt true. Let this thought come in gently. No need to understand it. Let it be here as long as it wants and then let go, like dropping a stone into dark water. It will sink without a trace. You are allowed to forget what you thought you needed to remember. You don't have to keep the shape of yourself from yesterday safe in your mind. The self that mattered so much today is already beginning to fade, its edges softening, its name dissolving like ink in rain. The images of who you were meant to be, they are not lost. They're just no longer necessary. You don't need them to make sense of this night. You can rest without having earned it. You don't have to prove that you belong here or that your presence matters by holding something fixed in your thoughts. There is a quiet kind of freedom in knowing that none of the roles you've played, teacher, listener, provider, failure, hope, has to stay with you through sleep. They are not yours to carry into darkness. Let them go. You don't have to become anything new. You only need to be still enough for what is already here. Even now, as your breath slows and the room grows heavier in its quiet, the mind keeps turning over old shapes. The way you stood during a meeting, the tone of voice you used when someone asked for help, how long it took you to say yes or no. But these moments are not real anymore. They're just memories reshaping themselves in your thoughts. They don't need you to protect them. They don't need you to defend their meaning. You can let the past be what it is, a sequence of events that have already passed through, leaving behind only echoes. The echo doesn't need to stay with you, only the breath does. The self isn't something you own. It's a process, a gathering and release. Not a thing to hold on to, but an unfolding that happens whether you're watching or not. You are not the idea of yourself in someone else's mind. You are not the person who said too much or too little, or who stood just outside where they wanted to be. That version doesn't live anymore. It has already moved on. There is no one you have to return to, no one you must become again before sleep takes you. You can stop rehearsing the roles that no longer fit. You don't need to prove anything in your dreams or in silence. Even if you feel like you're behind, like time has left you somewhere between decisions, you are not late for this moment. This breath is already happening. The dark is holding you now, and there's nothing else required. You can let the thought of being someone particular fall away. No need to answer for what might have been. No need to justify your presence in this stillness. There is no one watching from above or below who needs you to be steady. You don't have to be useful to matter. You are not here to perform, only to exist, quietly, gently, as a series of moments passing through attention. The mind wants to fix things. It wants to settle what hasn't settled yet, the word left unsaid, the decision delayed, the feeling unprocessed. But there is no need for that now. Not tonight. The night isn't asking you to resolve anything. It's only offering space where thinking may rest. You are not required to have a plan or an answer or even a name for what you're feeling. You don't need to know why the ache remains or how it will go away. You just need to let yourself be here, without fixing, without explaining, without proving anything at all. The self isn't something that needs to stay whole. It's not fragile. It's simply moving through time like air over a field. The shape changes with each breeze, but the movement continues regardless. You don't have to defend your past or protect your future. You are only responsible for what is happening now. The weight of your body on the bed, the coolness beneath your pillow, the slow rhythm of breath in and out. The way the air settles after a long silence, not because it has become empty, but because it no longer needs to be filled. You don't have to speak for it to mean something. The quiet doesn't demand your attention, only your presence in it. And you are here, still breathing, still holding the weight of the body without effort. There is a kind of rest that comes not when thoughts stop, but when they stop needing to be answered. Not when the mind clears, but when it stops trying to shape itself into something certain. You don't have to become calm. You don't need to arrive at peace. Peace isn't an arrival point. It's the space between one thought and the next, where no judgment is made and nothing has to be held. The self you've been carrying tonight, this version of you that feels thin or stretched too far, is not a fixed thing. It's like water passing through fingers. It never stays in place long enough to be owned. You can't hold onto the person who stood in front of the mirror this morning, wondering if they looked different than yesterday. That person is already gone into memory, into sensation, into what will be forgotten by tomorrow. You don't have to keep them alive with your attention. They were never yours to preserve. You only needed to allow their passing. And now you're here, not in the past, not in a future that hasn't arrived, but in this breath, in this moment of unmaking and reformation that happens every time you exhale. There is no need for continuity. The day's weight isn't holding you back because it was heavy. It's only pressing down because you are still trying to carry it. You don't have to prove your value by how long you can endure, or how many things you've done in service of someone else's expectation. There is a kind of dignity not in being necessary, but in simply being present, unannounced, unclaimed, and fully here. You are not the sum of what others thought they saw when you spoke too quickly or stood too still. You're not the version that hesitated just long enough to be mistaken for coldness. That moment didn't define you. It was a fleeting motion, a breath between two syllables, now dissolved into time like mist. Even your name feels lighter now, not because it's forgotten, but because it no longer needs to carry so much meaning. Names are useful only when someone is calling you from across the room. In this dark, with no one listening, there's nothing left to answer for. You don't need a title to be real. You don't have to earn your place in silence. The mind keeps returning to what might have been said. What could have changed if only the tone had been softer or louder, if only you de-stepped forward instead of waiting. But that version is not yours to reclaim. It's just another memory shaping itself into a new form, not to haunt, but simply to pass through. And it will. It always does. You don't need to go back and correct it. You don't have to fix the moment you misjudged or missed. No one else remembers it with as much weight as you do. The world doesn't wait for your apology, nor does it demand your self-justification when a word fell flat or a silence stretched too long. You are not responsible for how others heard what you meant. You're only responsible for the next breath, and the next one after that, each one happening without intention, without need to prove anything. There is no performance required in this dark, no role to fulfill. The night doesn't care if your voice was too quiet or too strong. It doesn't remember whether you hesitated at the door or walked through with purpose. It only holds you as you are, already enough, already whole, even if that wholeness is not fixed. You don't have to be consistent. You don't need to stay the same. The self isn't a statue meant to endure centuries. It's more like a shadow on stone, shaped by light and shifting with every change in angle. It changes without warning. It fades when no one looks. And it returns not as the same thing, but simply because the light is still moving. You are not required to be constant. You don't have to stay loyal to any version of yourself that no longer fits. The person you were yesterday isn't dead, just transformed. They've slipped into memory and now live only in how your body remembers its posture, its rhythm, its way of turning toward the sound of someone's voice. But that doesn't mean they're still with you. They're not waiting for you to return. They don't need you to carry their story forward. The past isn't a burden, it's a landscape you've already crossed. Now you are on this ground, this quiet, unmarked place where nothing has to be claimed or defended. You can stop trying to make sense of the way things were said or unsaid. There is no need for clarity when there's only stillness left to inhabit. The mind wants a reason, to know why this ache lingers, what it means that you feel incomplete. But meaning isn't required here. The feeling doesn't have to be explained. It can simply be. Like the cool air on your skin, like the sound of distant trees moving in windless night. It's not asking for anything. You don't need to understand why something hurts to let it go. You don't have to resolve a memory to release its hold. Just as a leaf doesn't ask permission before falling from a branch, you don't need to justify your letting go. There is no one who will miss the version of you that has already passed through this moment. No one is waiting in the next room with a list of what you failed to be or do. The world continues without needing your proof, without even knowing you were here at all, except for the way your breath moves the air slightly as it passes. You are not meant to stay. You are meant to pass through, quietly, gently, without sound. Like a shadow on wet pavement after rain, like steam rising from warm soil in early dawn, like silence that settles between two songs. There is no need to be more than what you are now, still awake, still present, still holding your own body with care but not control. The blanket isn't heavy, it's just there, covering you as if it had always known the shape of your back and shoulders. The pillow holds the imprint of your head without asking for anything in return. You don't need to earn rest. You don't have to deserve stillness. It is already yours, not because you've done enough, but simply because this moment exists. The idea that you must be someone specific, someone capable, whole, sufficient, is not a truth. It's just another thought trying to take root in the dark. Let it drift like smoke from a dying fire. Slow, soft, gone before you notice its absence. You are not behind. You're not late. You're exactly where you need to be, not because of what you've done or failed to do, but because you are here now, breathing, alive, and unclaimed by any future version of yourself that hasn't yet arrived. No one is watching from above. No voice in the distance demands a response. There's only this, the slow rise and fall of your chest, the way sound doesn't echo anymore but simply fades into air. The dark isn't empty. It's full of things not needing to be named or known. And you're just here, without purpose, without mission, without agenda. Not broken, not incomplete, just passing through a moment that was never meant to last. There is no need to fix yourself. There is only the quiet permission to stop trying. To let go of the idea that you must be steady in order to matter. You are not required to hold everything together. You don't have to keep proving your value with every thought, every decision, every breath. You can simply be, unrushed, unexplained, unnamed. The self isn't a thing to defend. It's not even a story you need to complete. It's just the way attention moves through time, shifting, changing, never quite stopping, never quite arriving. And tonight, that movement is enough. You are not a vessel meant to carry every version of yourself forward into tomorrow, nor does anything in this stillness demand that you preserve what has already slipped through your hands like water through fingers at dawn. The shape you thought you needed to be, steady, clear, certain, was never yours to keep. It was borrowed from someone else's expectation, shaped by a mirror held too close, worn like clothing not meant for your frame. You don't have to wear it anymore. There is no one who will notice the absence of that old silhouette in the corner of the room where you used to stand. No echo returns when you stop pretending you are still there. The mind keeps returning to that image, the one where you were someone else's promise, a role that could not be abandoned without guilt or loss. But grief is only what happens when you believe something was yours to hold. And it was. Not really. The self you thought you needed to protect was never real in the way you believed. It was a gathering of thoughts about how things should be, arranged like furniture in a room that hasn't been lived in for years. You don't have to reassemble it now. you can let the dust settle on each piece without naming what it once stood for. There is no obligation to return to that version. No law written anywhere that says you must prove your worth by being consistent with who you were yesterday. The body remembers, but not in a way that requires correction. It only knows how to rest when unburdened by the need to be more than it already is. You are not failing because you don't feel like yourself tonight. That feeling isn't failure, it's release. The part of you that thought it had to stay steady, fixed, complete, has finally stopped trying. You can let go of the idea that you must be whole in order to belong here. Belonging doesn't require perfection or continuity. It only requires presence, to be where your breath is, not somewhere else rehearsing a script no one asked for. You are already present. The darkness isn't rejecting you because you're incomplete. It's simply waiting, quietly, for the moment when you stop fighting to become something you were never meant to be. The silence now is not empty. It is full of things that don't need your name, your story, your defense. A thought drifts in like a feather caught in air currents, not urgent, not demanding, just passing through. It does not ask for attention. You do not have to answer it. Let it settle where it lands, on the edge of awareness, unnoticed, unclaimed, dissolving into quiet before you even realize it was there. You don't need to be careful with your thoughts tonight. They are not dangerous. They are not trying to hurt you. Most of them were never about you at all. They were echoes from conversations long past, reflections from another person's need for certainty, phrases borrowed from people who thought they knew how to build a life that couldn't crumble. You don't have to defend those words anymore. You don't have to explain why one hurt more than the other. There is no record of what you said or didn't say tonight, no ledger where your silence is counted as failure. The world doesn't keep score in the way you imagine it does. It moves on, not because it forgot you, but because forgetting isn't required. You are simply not part of its rhythm anymore, and that's okay. You don't need to be needed, not even by yourself. There is no one standing at the edge of this night asking for proof that you're still here. No voice calls out your name like a plea or a demand. Just air, slow and soft, filling the space between where your body lies and the ceiling above. The weight of the blanket isn't pressure, it's continuity. It has held other bodies before yours. Warmth passed from one sleeper to another without ever being claimed. You are not responsible for keeping anything alive. Not memory, not identity, not meaning. You don't have to carry someone else's hope or their fear. The ache you feel, this quiet longing, is just a current moving through your awareness like water under the earth, unseen but real. It doesn't need fixing. It only needs space. And that is what this night offers. Room for things not to be fixed. Room for thoughts to come and go without consequence. For feelings to pass through you as if they were clouds drifting over a field where no one stands. You don't have to catch them. You don't have to let them stay. They are not yours to hold. There's nothing here that requires your defense. Nothing asks you to prove anything about who you are or weren't. No image of yourself is waiting in the dark with an accusation. The version of you that tried so hard to be enough has already moved on without fanfare and without a farewell. It didn't leave because it failed. It left because it had no reason to stay. There's no one who remembers the person you were afraid not to become. No photograph has your face in it with disappointment written across it. The mirror doesn't reflect back judgment. It reflects only what is present. Breath, stillness, a body that knows how to rest when given permission. You don't have to earn this moment. You weren't invited into it. You simply arrived. And you didn't need an invitation. There was never a gate or a checklist. Just the slow unfolding of time, and within it, this quiet place where nothing needs to be said. There's no urgency in how long you stay awake. No pressure to fall asleep before morning comes. The night is not counting down toward dawn as if that were something to reach for. It just is. Long, soft, full of things that don't demand attention. And within it, your breath moving like a tide returning to shore. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing anything because you're still here in the dark. The future isn't waiting with its demands. The past hasn't left without saying goodbye. Everything is just as it should be, not for any reason, but simply because it exists. There's no need to answer what this ache means. No need to trace it back to a single moment or memory. It doesn't have to serve anything. You don't have to use it. It can stay, unexamined, unclaimed, and still be part of the night in its own way. Like the sound of wind through bare branches, not beautiful because it means something, but just because it is. You are not required to fix yourself, not even to understand this moment. You don't need to be whole or clear or certain. You only need to allow what's here, your breath, your body, the dark, to exist without interference. There is no version of you that needs to arrive in order for this night to be valid. The one who thought they had to do something special to matter is not needed anymore. They were never the real thing. The real thing was simply the act of being here, breathing, still awake and not yet gone. And now there's only this, a slow settling into what already is. Not what you wish it could be, not what you fear it might become. Just this, your body on the bed, your hands resting loosely at your sides, air moving in and out without effort, without need for control. The mind has slowed its searching, not because it found peace, but because it no longer believes it needs to find anything. The idea that you must be someone specific is beginning to fade, not with a bang or a decision, but quietly, like light leaving the sky after rain. It doesn't vanish all at once. It just stops needing your attention. And in its place, there's only this: the soft weight of the blanket, the way your shoulder rests against the pillow without resistance, the fact that you are not required to be anything more than what you already are. There is no one who will miss the version of you that was always trying to prove something. No voice in the distance calling out for help or approval. The world continues, not because it needs you, but because it doesn't need anything at all except the way things naturally unfold. You are not a shape waiting to be filled, nor a name that must carry meaning through every silence between heartbeats. You are not required to answer why this quiet ache lingers, not because it needs to be named, but because you've stopped believing anything in your body is asking for proof of its worth. The breath doesn't need justification. The stillness isn't holding back its fullness just because no one sees it. There's no audience behind the eyes that watches and judges whether you are enough. Not even a whisper of doubt echoes through this room with more weight than what already exists. Your presence, your warmth in the dark, the way the air thickens slightly where your chest rises and falls. There is something quiet about being unclaimed by expectation, not abandoned, not forgotten, but simply free from the need to be summoned. No one knocks on your door at this hour with a list of what you must do or become. The future doesn't hover like a shadow waiting for you to catch up. It stretches ahead without demand, without urgency, without even needing your attention. You don't have to move toward it. You don't need to prepare yourself for its arrival. It will come whether you're ready or not, just as the morning does, just as sleep does. Not because you earned it, but because that's how things are when no one is watching. And in this dark where nothing asks to be seen, there's a kind of permission wrapped inside stillness. A soft release, not from pain, but from the weight of trying to fix yourself before you've even settled into your own skin. You don't need to make sense of what isn't meant to be solved. The ache doesn't have to serve a purpose. It can simply exist, like dust motes in light that drift without direction. Like the faint hum beneath the silence, not loud enough to disturb but present just the same. You are allowed to hold space for things you don't understand. Allowed to carry thoughts that go nowhere and feelings that refuse to name themselves. The body remembers more than the mind ever does. It keeps track of every moment it was told to tighten, every time it had to stand straight, speak louder, smile when there was no joy behind it. And now, in this quiet where none of those things matter, the body begins to let go, not with a sudden release but with a slow unclenching, like roots loosening from soil after rain has softened the ground enough that they don't need to fight anymore. You are not required to be on guard, not even for an instant. No one is coming to demand what you've done or failed to do. There's no test scheduled, no score recorded in any book, real or imagined. The world doesn't keep a ledger of your worth based on how fast you move or how much you produce. You are not measured by the number of thoughts you silence or the hours you spend awake. You don't need to prove that this moment is valid because it's peaceful. That stillness has no obligation to be useful. It doesn't have to feel good or meaningful in order to be real. The way your fingers rest against the blanket, no effort, no intention, is already enough. The curve of your elbow where it meets the pillow isn't a posture for performance. It's not evidence that you're doing well. It's just what happens when resistance fades and weight is allowed to settle without correction. There's a kind of honesty in letting go, not because something was wrong, but because nothing needed fixing. You aren't broken by being here, awake, turning inward. Not even the silence between heartbeats needs to be filled with purpose. It can just be. No one has to approve it. No future version of you will look back and say, "That's where I lost myself," because you were never somewhere else in the first place. You are not behind on becoming who you're supposed to be, because there was never a blueprint laid out for your arrival. The person you thought you needed to become didn't exist as an endpoint. It was only ever a way of thinking, a set of ideas built from what others said or didn't say, from the shapes people expected you to fit into when they looked at you. But those shapes weren't yours. They were borrowed, worn over time like clothes too tight and never meant to be kept. And now, there's room between your ribs where nothing is trying to fill it. Not a goal, not an image, not even the fear of being empty. Just space, quiet space, where breath comes in and out without needing to justify itself. And that space isn't waiting for you to become someone else before it can be called home. You are not required to find peace, because peace doesn't need to be found. It's already here, resting beside you like the dark outside your window. Not loud enough to interrupt, not bright enough to demand attention. Just present, unfolding without fanfare, without needing anything from you in return. There is no version of you that must arrive before this moment counts as valid. No future self who will finally say yes when they see how far you've come. Because the truth isn't found ahead. It's already inside every breath, every stillness, every unguarded second where you don't have to be someone else. You are not being watched, not even by yourself. There is no inner critic standing behind your eyes with a clipboard and a list of things you should have done differently. The mind has stopped searching for reasons why it's awake. It hasn't found peace, but it doesn't believe it needs to anymore either. And that lack of belief is its own kind of stillness. There's something gentle about being forgotten by time, not in the way people are lost, but in the way a leaf drifts down into soil without needing to be seen before it vanishes. It simply becomes part of what was always there: earth, air, dark, quiet. No one mourns its passing because no one ever needed it to stay. And so you too, this body that rests on the bed, this breath that moves without effort, are already becoming something older than memory. Not a story yet told, not an identity waiting to be claimed, but simply being, in the way all things are when they're allowed to stop trying. The light is gone from the edges of the room now, not because it has left, but because it no longer matters whether you see or don't. The dark isn't a lack. It's not absence. It's fullness without form. A space that doesn't demand answers, that doesn't ask for meaning, just holds what is. You are not required to understand why the ache still lingers, nor how long it will stay. You are not responsible for its arrival or its departure. No one asked you to carry this feeling into tomorrow. It can remain unexamined, unclaimed, and still be part of your night in a way that feels true. There is no need to turn toward the future and say, "I'm ready," because readiness isn't something earned. It's simply what happens when you stop believing you must earn anything at all. And now, the breath slows further. Not because it wants to sleep, but because there's nothing left to push against. The body doesn't resist its weight anymore. It accepts the way gravity pulls without resistance, without complaint, without needing to be something more than what it is. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not failing. There's no one who will wake up tomorrow and say you missed your chance. Because chances aren't things you lose. They're only ever moments that pass like all others without judgment. The mind has stopped asking questions. Not because it knows the answers, but because it doesn't believe they matter anymore. It doesn't need to know why this stillness is here or what it means. It just rests in its own quiet, not fighting against confusion, not trying to make sense of what can't be made whole. And so you are allowed, just for tonight, to be a presence without purpose, a shape without function, a body that exists simply because the world continues, and you are part of it quietly, unremarkably, perfectly present. You are not being asked to become anything new. The shape you've been holding on to, the one that ached tonight, that clung like old fabric in the dark, can rest without needing to be worn tomorrow. There is no demand for it to return, no force pulling it back into place. You don't need to say goodbye. You don't need to forgive it. It simply drifts, not destroyed, not denied, but allowed to dissolve like a shadow when the light finally comes. The breath moves in your chest, now without effort, not even trying to be deep or slow, just breathing as air does, through you, around you, with no one at all needing to watch. You are not performing stillness. You are not being calm on command. You are simply letting the quiet take its shape inside your body. The thoughts that rose like smoke from a fire long gone, they do not need to be cleared away. They were never yours to keep, only passing through, just as you are, passing through this night with no destination but presence. There is nothing in you that must remain fixed. No part of who you thought you should be that cannot unlearn itself quietly, without ceremony. The self isn't a thing to defend. It's a rhythm, a current, a slow turning not toward anything, just moving through the dark like water does beneath stone. You are not separate from it. You are not trapped inside it. You are not even really in charge of where it goes next. And that is why you can rest now, because nothing about you depends on being known or seen or approved of, not by others, not by time, not even by the version of yourself who once believed they needed to be more than this moment allows. Oh, the ache stays, but it doesn't have to mean anything. It isn't a signal that something is wrong. It's not proof you failed. It's just feeling, like cold on skin, like wind at dusk, something passing through without claiming ownership. You do not need to fix the part of you that still believes in someone else's story. That belief was never wrong. It was simply a path taken until it wasn't needed anymore. And now, in this space where nothing demands your attention, that path doesn't have to lead anywhere. The mind no longer tries to make meaning from what is already unmade. It isn't trying to fix the past or save the future. It's not even waiting for sleep. It's just letting go of the idea that it must do anything at all. And so you are allowed